What's up, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to give you guys a very quick update about Tesla stock and talk about why there's going to be a very big opportunity coming, in my opinion. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. So as far as Tesla's going, as you could tell, we've been on this very big downtrend. And the question is the bottom in yet or not? Well, using a very cool tool known as Forecaster, I just want to talk to you guys about this, looking at AI models that basically look at what happens in the past. It basically uses pattern recognition technology to tell us what's going to likely happen in the future to stocks. Our projection indicators that Tesla is still strong overall. It's known for being very robust. However, for the short term, there are risks of Tesla dipping to 380 or even as low as the 330s, right? We could be looking for a big sell-off. Usually doesn't go as much as the bearish case that anticipates, but it kind of like it could come in the middle, which would take us towards like the 360 area before we see a very nice bounce back up towards the 450s or even as high as 480. And that is what our projection indicator is telling us so far using Forecaster. When it comes to seasonality, we typically would see like a pullback in the October period before we turn bullish around November/December up until January. But this year, it looks like we were super bullish. We did start to dip a bit in October, then we bounced, and then we just continued to fall again. So the downside has been delayed, and it's basically coming out for the month of November. It may continue a bit longer, but then we're going to see if we get some kind of bounce or not. I think it's not just Tesla, right? If you look at the overall market, for example, if you look at our SPY chart, we're seeing the same thing basically developing thus far, meaning that it's not just Tesla that's following this trend. The overall market is still doing this. But one thing to remember is that the market is still up 6 months out, a year from before, 3 years from before. We're still up like crazy in the markets. We're still on a massive uptrend, and this is just a very healthy pullback. When it comes to what we're seeing in the markets, let me actually just switch over right here. We're still neutral. We're not super oversold or overbought. We're not really getting any buy ratings. And our projection, at least as far as the market's going, it basically suggests that there is some downside risk on SPY. We could still see some more downside back down to the 640s or 630s, according to this. But then we could be looking for a massive squeeze to basically either finish off the year or basically as we approach early next year. And the trend is still very bullish. So what I'm saying is that when you zoom out of Tesla and look at the weekly time frame, we're still technically very strong. We have a very nice looking cup and handle on the weekly. We're also on a very big uptrend, and Tesla will likely continue to make higher highs and higher lows, meaning that all we're doing is this: we're making higher highs and higher lows over and over again. And as we correct, this will be nothing more than another buying opportunity. And that's the most likely possibility for Tesla stock and the broader markets. Right? You could draw a trend line out like this on the weekly, and you could see if Tesla does decline towards like 350, as we come down to fill that gap towards 368, that could be our buying opportunity. Or even if we dip a little bit lower towards 320, it's still going to be a good buying opportunity. I would say anywhere between 320 and 360 could be a good buying opportunity for Tesla. And then we could easily continue to rally as we head into next year. We're still bullish overall, despite the downside move. Look at SPY. This chart is super bullish on the weekly. We're only down about 5% from the all-time high, which is very healthy. We're going to see if SPY dips a bit more before it tries to bounce. It would be healthy if we retest like 649 or even dip lower. If we dip lower, like our charts like the charts are telling us, if we do dip towards like 640, that depends on some key levels. I do want to mention on the hourly time frame, we have this like downtrend, and we're going to be watching 646 as one of our supports alongside 641. And ultimately, anything I would say under 650 would be a potential buying opportunity. Even if SPY continues to downtrend for like the 630s, we could slowly dollar cost average into positions. And I think that this is going to be nothing more than another buying opportunity, because as SPY continues this downtrend and we may even retest the 646 or the 630s, I see this as an opportunity to start buying the dips because we're going to likely be breaking all-time highs by early next year. Look at the QQQ. We're on this big downtrend. There's a head and shoulders like pattern on the QQQ, and there are some gaps to fill. Even if we bounce a bit, we could still reject off this trend line and then continue to fall. So a move like this could be coming on the QQQ, and then we're going to see if we could basically form a bottom soon. We're not ready yet. There is a gap, I think, down here that I was looking at. I think the daily gives you more insights. So there is basically this support to watch for at 580 if that fails on the QQQ. If we bounce and reject, I would not rule out the possibility of us dipping to 575 or even filling the gap back down to 565. So we could dip, we could bounce, then dip another distance, but I think anywhere all the way down here around 575 or below, that could be the start of a really good buying opportunity, because I still think the QQQ is very bullish. And sometimes you get these corrections or these pullbacks. Sometimes you get these moments where we dip, but the overall trend is still very bullish. Even if we dip a bit more, I would see this as another buying opportunity for another squeeze to finish us off. So when is the market going to squeeze? I think the answer now depends on something. So Tesla is moving with the markets. Tesla like to pump with the markets, dump with the markets, pump with the markets. Now it's dumping with the markets. Tesla, SPY, and the QQQ, these things are essentially moving together, right? They're moving together in unison, and it's not necessarily that Tesla is on its own. The whole market is moving together. So when the whole market starts to bounce, when we get a very, very big uptrend on Tesla, SPY, and the QQQ, I think they're going to be running together as they all have very similar setups. So when is that going to happen? When are we going to get a big bounce? It depends, I believe, on FOMC. First, there was a 90% chance of us getting a cut in December. Then it went down to 20, not 29%. I think it was around 39%. So we saw a big dump in this. Then it started to bounce again. Now there's a 69% chance of us getting a cut because Williams from the Fed was saying that he favors a cut without putting the inflationary goal at risk. That's what we heard from John Williams, the New York Fed president. So some people in the Fed are saying we should cut. Some are saying we shouldn't cut. They're all over the place. We're going to see what that leads to moving forward. On the economic calendar, there's not really much data coming out for next week, but we're going to be watching when we finally get CPI data and other factors like the more jobs numbers. And I think the Fed on December 10th will give us the answer if we're about to form a bottom now or if we're about to see a bigger downtrend. But either way, I do think that there is still some more downside risk on stocks like Tesla. I would not be surprised if Tesla kind of pumps and dumps and eventually comes back down to fill the gap around 368 or even the 350s. And I think that anything under like 370 would be a good potential, place to start buying up Tesla like crazy. Even if we touch like 380, starting position there would not be a bad idea to slowly dollar cost average, because I believe Tesla will return to the 500s by early next year, especially because the early parts of the year tend to be very bullish for the stock. I think that for the short term, we are bearish though, so we're just going to follow the trend in front of us. But keep in mind, we're forming a much larger cup and handle like structure. We have a giant cup, and then the handle is forming as we're about to form a bottom as we continue to fall. 368 could be one bottom area or even a little bit below that. But then once we fill a lot of these gaps, I do think Tesla will reverse and there's going to be a big squeeze coming. It's going to start either maybe after FOMC or it could be starting a little bit later, depending on what the Fed tells us early next year. It depends. But overall, like I said before, our indicators are telling us the markets likely have more upside potential. And the same thing could be said about these different things. Tesla as well, when you look at, for example, our overall projections, 3 months out, although there is some downside risk, at least for the share price, overall, there's a lot of strong momentum for us. Even if we dip a little bit, another 3% or as much as 10% on Tesla, even if we do see another pullback, it's going to be a big buying opportunity. And I think Tesla will most likely return to all-time highs in the upcoming months. That is what our indicators tell us so far using Forecaster. And I think that Tesla is going to be providing us with a lot of opportunity. Tesla's neutral right now. We're not getting any major buy ratings yet. One thing that's very cool about forecasters, it tells you when it's smart to like start selling a stock or start buying. So for example, up here, we were basically getting a sell rating. Then we got a buy rating down here. We got a sell rating as it started to dip. As Tesla pushed to the 460s, we got a sell rating. And then this basically dumped. So we're waiting to see if we could get some kind of like buy rating soon. So we're going to see if we get some kind of buy rating or not when the time finally comes. We're not ready yet for a bounce. And overall, I think the share price is still a little bit more bearish. So there's downside risk for now on Tesla. But like I said before, it's creating a very good buying opportunity. And And I think by early next year, Tesla will easily start to run, and we're going to be looking for new all-time highs on SPY, the QQQ, and Tesla. So could we dip more now? Yes, we can. I think Tesla could retest 380, then the 375 area, and 368, and then we'll see if we dip below those levels or not. But I will be buying Tesla. SPY could also continue to fall back down to start filling some gaps. It may pop a bit, at least from here. Then we're going to see if this continues to fall. We're watching that 650 support. If it doesn't hold, once again, we're looking for 646 and eventually back down closer to like 635. And then we'll see if we bounce off those levels. The QQQ could also retest this trend line before continuing to fall, but there is once again the resistance becoming support at 580, then 575 if those fail us. There's also the gap to fill at 565, then we'll see if we get a massive bounce or not. All right, so my view is quite simple. There is downside risk, but it depends on the Fed. The Fed will give us insights during FOMC if the market's about to bottom and with what they're about to do with interest rates. And then as time goes on, we're going to see what happens. But just know this, as Tesla dips, it's nothing more than a buying opportunity. And this is going to rally to new all-time highs quite easily in the upcoming months. I'm quite confident about that. I'll talk more about Tesla stock later on. If you guys want to sign up for Forecaster, by the way, you guys can check out my link down below, or use my link to save 10% on your membership if you're interested. Anyways, that's it for this one. Thank you for listening, and peace out.